instead of using fetch, use Axios in the entire application and use timestack query, you can say React query for API calls in the entire application. Now let's see how it replaces. So we can search for fetch. You can see there are so many changes, API calls in the store.lib. So what is store.lib? Store.ts. So this is just API. So this is not actual store. These are just API. So it could have called API.ts, but timestack Cloud Code decided to use store.ts as the name. So it's not actually store. These are just APIs. So now it's trying to find out where is Axios and where is fetch. So these are fine. So now it's trying to make use Axios instead of fetch. You can see it has replaced this. You can see all the APIs are also replaced here. So instead of fetch, it has used Axios. So you can see all the changes are done, and let's close this and see each of the change which is done. So dashboard, let's see what it has done. So instead of use callback, now use query and remove the use effects. Always avoid using use effect because it will you will have extra re-render because you will be setting state. So you can see now it has added use mutation and instead of directly calling the API in the component. So always avoid calling API directly in the component. So if you see, let me check. So here also, if you see, we are directly using use query in each of the components, which is also not a good practice. So you should create a separate hook for each of the use query and use mutation. So let's first add this to staging area so we can understand what it has done. So let me open Cloud Code. And here we can say instead of, so in the same tab because it's related to the same. So instead of adding use query, and use mutation. So this is a best practice directly in the component. Always create a new custom hook for every use query and use mutation. So use query is for making API calls to get the data and use mutation is for updating or deleting. So it's not good to add that any use query or use mutation directly in the component. So here you can see use query is directly used inside the component. So it's always good to add or separate out your API calls. Instead of adding in the component, you can make it in separate file. So let's open that Cloud Code which is running. Let's close all these. So now you can see I will create individual custom hook for every use query and use mutation, then update all components to use them. So this is always the best practice. So you can easily test each of the component by just calling that whatever you use hook is there. So use query, what use mutation hook. So you can directly call this. So testing becomes easier. So you can see it has created separate hooks and everything is done. So let me close this and we can verify each of the hook. You can see now inside hooks folder we have separate hooks. Use link, use delete, use links again. This use result shortcode and use update profile. So all this looks fine. So here in pages, you can see now instead of this directly using, now we are directly using the custom. Now we are using the custom hook. So this all looks good. So let me verify this. So before committing, always verify. So let's save this and let's restart this. So this has the major changes. So whenever you make a lot of changes, it's always good to restart the server, npm run dev, so you can verify it again. So sometimes it might happen that even after making your changes, it's not get reflected. So what you can do is you can delete the .next folder. So .next is where all the cache is stored. So if you face such issues, you can always delete the .next folder and again restart the server. Again execute npm run dev. So this is a common issue if you are using Next.js, you might face this issue.